on this computer. All right. Hello and welcome to week 3. I am still Brother Stevic. I am still your teacher. Everything's going good. So let me start as I try to do all the weeks. Did anyone have any questions or comments or concerns from week 2's lessons? Anything about the quizzes, the reverse engineering, lessons that the queries that you write in the exercises? Anything? Nope. All right, that's fine. Week 2 is pretty much a layup. You're gonna be fine. Week 3 and 4 are gonna be okay. It's week 5 when the queries or the coding starts to be a little bit on the tricky side. So what I want to do tonight is I want to talk about what you need to do for week 3, show you some code, and then we will end the night talking about the final project. For those of you who wish to do the final project, which hopefully you will, because it's a really, really cool thing. Okay, let me share my screen. Let me find the thing. Oh, there, share screen, share screen, share the screen. All right, so we're in week 3. Let me move this bad boy down here. I'm recording. Yes, I am. Very good. Okay, we can put there. Okay. So week 3, we're going to be talking about the comparison operators and using nulls. I'll soapbox for a minute with you guys about null values and why I think they're the work of the devil. We're going to talk about comparisons. Today is going to be all about the where clause. That's really all we're going to talk about is the where clause. And I have probably about 10 query examples for different ways to use the where clause. You got PowerPoint slides. You got all sorts of all sorts of websites here, video tutorials. Go ahead and watch those. Like I said, I've said before, I'll say again, the video links, the video tutorials are almost more important than the book. Almost. The book is a great thing to have. It is great to be used as a resource, as you would a dictionary or an encyclopedia. I don't realistically think anyone could actually read the book. I've met 1 or 2 people who can. It's very dry. It's no Twilight, is all I'm saying. So just work through it. It's better to use it as a resource. Go into the back. If you're looking something up, go into the index, go to that page, read that particular entry. It'll be a much more efficient tool for you. Okay, so we're talking about where clause today. The exercises, these are all going to be about writing where clauses, how to make those might be the answers. Okay, so all about where clauses, writing where clause, identifying where clauses. The paper this week is you should return a report with 3 to 5 paragraphs that clearly explains what you learned about various comparison operators in the where clause. This paper should qualify what you learned by experimenting with the technology. The papers like the papers from every week. It's like, what did you learn that week? This is between this and the exercises are really where I am able to discern how much you guys are picking up in the class, and where I need to talk about the next week and the things that I need to talk to you about. This class is very much, many people take this class and never set foot into the Tuesday night meetings, never talk to me. There's one person right now in one of the 2 classes I'm teaching that's already in week 6's work, right? More power to them. It's great to do, but I tried to make sure you guys get something out of it in the conversations we have in these Tuesday night sessions, tell you a little bit more and go over stuff with you. But these papers are my way of understanding how you're doing with the material. If you're understanding it, if you're getting it right, stuff like that. Okay, but and we're going to talk about there's something. If you choose to do the final project, the papers change. They're not like they normally are. Okay, so any questions on any of that stuff? I'm going to go right into the queries. Okay, so this week it's all about the where clause, and like I said last week, probably the most important job of a database developer is not only creating the database for the data to keep it, but it's getting that data out of there in a way that that the end user, the customer, can understand and look at. When we make our tables, and I'll show you an ERD that I built in a little bit. When we make our tables, each table holds a part of the information that the customer wants to see. It doesn't hold everything. It's not a spreadsheet. And we want to make sure that when the user grabs that data, uses the application, uses the database, they get information, what they want, but more importantly, how they want to see it and what makes sense to them, and they're getting exactly what they're asking for. So part of that is the select query. You know, what columns in the tables do you want to see? But really the most important part of the query in giving them what they want is the where clause, because the where clause isolates the information that they want to see. So they're not getting, in a table that has 6.7 billion rows, and they only need to see 4 of them, you're writing a query that gives them the four rows that they need to see. So we're going to just talk about different ways to use the where clause. So here, let me use my, I get to do this, or it's not going to work. Okay. So we're talking about the equality comparison operators. We all took 2nd grade and 3rd grade math. We all know that these are the alligator mouths. They eat the larger number. That's still the same. So this is greater than, this is less than, this is greater than or equal to, this is less than or equal to, this is greater than or equal to, that's just equal. And then we got these 2 guys over here. So those are inequality operators. That means don't equal. This is the one that you're going to see used most often. The alligator kissing one. It just means one left side doesn't equal the right side. There are certain engines, MySQL being one of them, Oracle being the other one, that this operator is used specifically for numeric, and this operator is used specifically for text. In MySQL, this one can be used for either. Okay. So here, just going through this kind of tacks on to the code that we talked about last week. There's not a lot of new stuff here, just a couple different new ways to play with the where clause. Here, I'm looking at the film table. I'm looking for the title of length, where the length is greater than 100. This is pretty cut and dry. It's not rocket science, right? It's a single operator, a single where clause, and a single value, just looking where length is greater than 100. In the next one, I've got length, title length, and rental rate from film. And I've got another where clause here. I have where length is greater than 100 and rental rate is less than 5. So remember last week we talked about when I've got 2 stipulations in my where clause, this word here is incredibly important. There are 2 choices. It's and or. And means both criteria must be met, or means one or the other must be met. So if I run this with where length is greater than 100 and rental rate is less than 5, I run it and I get this out of my way so I can see down here. Okay. I get 400 rows returned. If I change this to an or, and don't mess it up, I still get 400 rows returned. Okay, must be 400, must be the maximum. But anyway, so this means either or must be met, and it means both must be met. Here I've got select title from film where title is like A. The like means I'm not doing an equivalence, equality. I just need to know it's like it. So I have this % sign after the A. So this is basically saying, show me anything where title starts with an A. Okay. If I put the % sign in front of the A, like that, it's saying, show me every film title that ends in A. Okay. So that ends in an A, that ends in an A. If I put percent on both sides of it, it's saying, show me anything that has an A in it. So my first one was 46 rows, my second is 22, and this one's going to be a whole lot because everything has an A in it. 400 rows. Okay. And I could just do a word here too. I could do age. Show me any place that has the word age in it. Agent, age, age, age. Okay. And there's 29 rows. Now this one here is a little funky. So I have where title lake A underscore E %. What this means is I want you to show me everywhere where the first letter is an A, the third letter is an A, the fifth letter is an E, and I don't care what's after it, and I don't care what's between the A's. So this can be anything, this can be anything, and that can be whatever's left at the end. I'm specifically looking for something where the first letter is an A, the third letter is an A, and the fifth letter is an E. And there were just two of those, right? I've been thinking about this one for a really long time. I don't know why you'd ever do this. You can just do like that as well, where the third letter, where the first letter is an A, the fifth letter is an E, and the second, third, and fourth can be whatever you want. Okay. So the underscore means I'm looking for one thing that can be anything. The percent is show me whatever's left. Okay. And like in all equalities, these are all equality operators where it's like and equal. I have inequalities. Show me select title from film where title not like the. So I don't want to see anything that starts with the. I don't want to see anything that has the word the in it anywhere. Select title length and rental rate from film where length does not equal 100. Okay. Everyone with me so far? Nathan J, Camilla, Jacob, Zach, Nathan B. Everyone good?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. All right. Please stop me if I'm going too fast or you don't understand something.
I do have a question.
Hit me.
It might be later down the road. I noticed when you did the AGE, it was returning results regardless of capitalization. Is there a way to go ahead and have it search for specific strings that have to be exact in value?
You mean with capitals as well, or
Yeah.
just
Capital or lowercase?
so? There are some engines that do that. Oracle, so it has
Okay.
to. So it's not by default. It will find anything. It doesn't have to be capital, right?
Okay.
When you install Oracle, when you install Microsoft SQL Server, I don't think you can do it with MySQL. You can actually they're what are they called? There are settings at the database level when you create the database or you install the engine to tell it, I want you to recognize capital letters. I want you to recognize things like that. I can't remember the name right now because I haven't installed SQL Server in a really long time. But it's something in the actual engine that you can do. By default, it does not do that.
Okay.
Because as you can imagine, so here's the thing. So like remember, and here's a good. So like let's say we have a front end where people are searching for books in my bookstore, right? And in the box they type in the word that they want. And let's say they forgot to capitalize the T in the stand. So the response will come back, there's nothing there. Because they didn't capitalize it correctly.
Right.
There are ways to and we'll talk about this a couple weeks down the road, how to have it come out in capitals and change everything to be capitalized correctly. But it's to answer your question specifically, you would there is a command when you set it up to make it do that, to recognize capitals and not return it if it's not capital.
Okay.
Good question though. No one's ever asked that question before, which makes it even better because I don't think about those things. It's case sensitive is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here we have where length is not like 100 now. So we have equality and inequality operators. They're pretty simple: equal, not equal, like, not like, in, not in. Because we've got let's see. I didn't do in, so select. Take this one here and just change this out a little bit. V. I can do where length and use the word in here and then put like, 86, 48, 70, that's fine too. 75 is even better. 99, 120. So this makes a little array. So it's like, show me length where is in these values. And if I run that, I'll probably get some results. Yeah, so I got some results here, right? So yeah, so I can, and if I want to see what's not in there, just add the word not in. Oops. No 10, that's not, there we are. So not in should be everything but, right? Oops. Did not mean to do that. I was doing it. All right. So there we go. Should be everything that's not in those numbers. So we have equality and non-equality operators. We also have range identifiers because sometimes we want to pull in from a range. So here in between is really the only one. So select title from film where length is between 50 and 100 inclusive. Okay. And notice here, and I do this one on purpose, that the where modifier is not in the select title, in the select statement. It doesn't have to be. Okay. Just because using it where does not mean you have to have it in the select. So these are all the movies that are between 50 and 100 minutes. Okay. And so obviously you can do like, and you can do this for like, this really only works with numeric. I think there's a way to play with it to make it use alpha characters, but it gets dicey when you're trying to do it that way because you can't really be, but technically you can between A and H, but it's depending on the engine and how it's installed, it may or may not work. And I can't think of any reason why you would do that in that way. Now this next trick here is pretty important because you're going to have a bunch of queries about the questions on this, not this week, maybe this week, but in coming weeks in 5, 6, and 7 about using subqueries. A subquery is whenever you take a main query and put another query into it, right? So here I've got select title from film where length equals select length from film where title is Academy Dinosaur. So if I run this on its own, it gives me an answer 86. If I run it like this, so remember last week in the video, we talked about how a query runs. So this query right here, right? The first thing that runs is the from statement, then the where statement, and then the select statement. Okay, that's the order it runs in because remember last week I said all your data in your database exists on your hard disk. Data on a hard disk at rest cannot be manipulated. It can't be looked at. It can't be anything. It's just sitting there. In order for any data to be used, looked at, modified, massaged, and presented to a customer, it's got to come off the disk and into the RAM. So when you run your select query, this is the first thing it runs because what it does when it runs the from clause first, it takes everything on the disk and puts it into active RAM. And again, last week I said you've got to be aware of this because if your table is 500 gigabytes big, that's 500 gigabytes of data that's going to be sitting in your RAM. So you got to make sure you get 500 gigabytes sitting that can be used by the database. That's why, like my servers at work, where my databases live, have currently 512 terabyte. No, It was 512 gigabytes. It's not, it's like a terabyte of RAM. Because that's how big the data are. So they're pulling massive queries into the RAM, and hundreds of people with massive queries into RAM. So it's got to have a lot of room in RAM. So here with the subquery, when you run this, the first thing that runs is that, and it gets the answer. And then everything else runs. So this query is run first. So this from is pulled first. This where is run next. This select is done. And then that answer is set aside in RAM. And then this from is pulled. And now you think to yourself, they're using the same table. Wouldn't they just pull the same way? No, it'll pull it again. So you're going to pull this the first time, get the answer, get your answer, which is 86. And then it's going to pull the film table, use this, and then do that. Do the selects part, okay? So again, when you're writing these queries with subqueries, it's incredibly important to be aware of how big the tables are, because you just pulled this table into RAM twice. And if this was a 500 gigabyte table, you just pulled a terabyte of data into RAM. So this runs, this gives you the answer, and then you do it from there. Why would you do this? Why would you not just do where length equals 68? Okay. Anyone want to take a guess at that? Why you don't want to do that?
I would have guessed that if the user's searching, like, I want to know a movie that's the same length as Academy Dinosaur, but they don't know the length to begin with.
Exactly. And that's what it comes down to. You want to have dynamic queries. There's a bad word in coding called this, hard-coded. We don't like hard coding things. And hard coding is when you put in a specific, like where length equals, this is hard coded, or length is between 50 and 100, because you can't change the 50 and 100. It's hard coded in. Here, where length from film, where title is Academy Dinosaur, this is dynamic. It's going to go and find this. Let me see something here.
Well, actually, I think it's kind of important to point out that a lot of the data that you're working with can be like changed into something else or updated. So then, yeah, it's going to break if you hard code it.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. So the other thing I was going to put it, like, let's say you had a query, and this was, let's say, let's just make up a table, like select star from inventory where price equal to select price from inventory where item equals Lego Batman, right? So let's say currently Lego Batman is $27, right? If I put where price equals $27, but then like Lego Batman goes on sale, it's no longer accurate. So I think it was Zach who said it, but because a database is a dynamic place and things change all the time, we don't want to hard code things because we never know what someone's going to be looking for, what the comparisons are going to be, or how things are going to change on a day-to-day basis, right? So we want to be as flexible and dynamic as we can on our queries. That's why subqueries become a thing.
I have a question for the title one.
Sure.
Shouldn't it show like the title of a film that's 86, since you said select title? Or maybe I'm not really understanding it.
It's like, yes, like, so if I run, so if I run this, it's going to show me, I didn't run the whole query yet. So if I run this,
okay, there.
it's going to show me the 5. I got ahead of myself. I didn't run the whole thing. So yeah, so it gets the 86 and then runs the entire query and just shows you that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yentl, Idaho. I gotta see something. Else. Yentl, Idaho. An amazing display of a robot and an astronaut must fight a womanizer in Berlin. I would watch that movie. We talked about this last week. Some of these descriptions are A thoughtful display of a mad scientist and secret agent who must chase a boat in Berlin. Bad things happen in Berlin, I guess. Anyway, I was just curious what Yentl had was the plot of it was. So yeah, so with the subqueries, sorry, Camilla. Is that how you say it, Camilla? So okay. So here it's 86, and when I run this, it's gonna show me everything that has 86, the length of 86.
Okay.
Over here, we have the same thing. I said select title from film, and I hear used in, right? So select length from film where titles like A_A%. I just did that for fun because we talked about it before. This is going to give me 12 results. This is going to show again. So I create this little array of 12 values, and I'm going to say select film from where length is in those 12 values. Okay. Any questions on the where clauses? If not, I'm going to move on to the final project. All right, moving on to the final project. The final project. Now, should you choose the final project, and I do encourage you to do this, we have a final exam and we have a final project. You only have to do one of them, not both of them. They're both worth 180 points. If you do one, you don't have to do the other. The final project, the final exam is, it's 180 points. I forget how many questions it is, but it's it's all the questions that were on the test banks for all the quizzes. So you'll probably see the same questions pop up in the final exam. The final exam is exactly like the quizzes. It's open book, open notes, open internet, open friend, open whatever, and you get 2 tries to complete it. Same thing as throughout. So there's that. That's the final project. A final exam. If you do the final exam, the papers stay the same. Whatever the prompt is for the paper, that's what you write about. This week, week 3, you write about what you learn about the where clause. Next week, you write what you learn about joins. Week after that, whatever it is. The final exam, the final project. If you choose to do the final project, it's due on week 13. You will not find this in week 13. You will find it here in week 3. I don't know. It's just the way it is. The reason why we have a final project now is because this class is Introduction to Database Administration and Design. Up until about 5 years ago, we didn't have a design element. We didn't teach anyone how to design databases. And really, that's the most fun part of all this is designing databases. Designing databases is a lot of fun. So we worked together, the faculty and the course owner and myself, and we came up with this final project. This final project allows you to design a database from scratch on the topic of whatever you want it to be, and to build it out, to write queries against it, to create the ERD, and to put data into it and present it. So what is here is what we decided 5 years ago they wanted you to do. That is not what I'm asking you to do. I can't change this. So I'm going to tell you tonight and every week for the next couple weeks, I'm going to post it in the announcements, what I'm specifically looking for. The final project requires 6 things to be turned into me. The first thing is an ERD. An ERD is called an entity relationship diagram. It is basically a database. And let me grab this one. Okay, this is an ERD. This I made a couple of years ago. We were talking about. I the one that built on a week on a Wednesday night meeting or Tuesday meeting. This is the first thing that you need to create. You need to come up with what you want the database to be. What do you want? What is a database that you think should be made? What is an application that you think should be made? In the past, people have made databases to keep track of kids' schedules, to keep track of like one for a school, like what teachers have what classrooms and what students are in that class. One person did because we're the church that we're the church of. People have done food storage inventories in database form. They've done database to keep track of food storage. One person one semester did something really, really cool. And I try to keep in touch with them because they made a database that not only tracked what was in your food storage, but also tracked recipes that you could use. And it would look at your available food storage and tell you what recipes you could make. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And I told them they absolutely need to turn that into application because I would pay $4.99 in the Google store for that thing, because that's pretty awesome. Like, how great would it be to like just have an app, like, you know, what's in your refrigerator and what I can make for dinner, and tells you what to make. I mean, that ends most marital fights right there. There's never a discussion of what's for dinner. It's like, here's what I have in the house, here's what I'm gonna make. If you don't like, there's a McDonald's down the road. So the first thing you need to do is make an ERD. The next thing is you create the ERD, and then you give me the code to create that ERD, that database on my machine. Okay, sending me. So let me say this here out loud. If I go back to my databases here, right? You can create from this. If you send me the database, it's called a WMD file. Don't send me that. I can't open it. Because I don't know that your MySQL is the same version as my MySQL. Don't send me that. I need the actual code. So over here, here's a little secret. So when you create the ERD, you can create the tables over here, do the whole thing. When you've got it built like this, if you go here to Tools, Database, and you go to Forward Engineer, and go through the next steps, this will write all the code for you to create the database. Okay. So once you have created the ERD, forward engineer it and grab the code. You'll need the code yourself to create the database in MySQL, so you can do the next part of it. Everyone with me so far? All right. Once you've had the ERD and you've gone through that and it's normalized, and we're gonna talk about more next week and the weeks following. We're going to create databases together. We're going to normalize, and we're going to talk about all these terms about normalization and stuff like that and what they mean. But it's easier to do that in action than to discuss. Did someone have a question? Okay. So once the database is created, you've got the code. You're going to so there's two more. So you've got the ERD. You've got the code for the database. The next two things you need are the code to insert data into the database. And then you need what they're called test cases. So a test case is a query that you'd write against the database to provide information to your customer. So for example, for this NASA database, I might want to write a query saying, how many missions have had 5 astronauts in them? How many missions have gone to Mars? What was the last launch out of Texas? Bob Williams is an astronaut. What was the first mission that he was on? How many missions missed their launch date by more than a month? So what a test case is how would my customers or my person using the database use this database to get the information that's important to them? Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? Okay. So once you have the ERD and once you have the code for the database, you need to write statements to input the data into the tables, and you need to write your test cases. I strongly suggest that you write your test cases first and then write the queries to put the data into the database. Because here's how I grade this assignment. I open it up and I look at your ERD and I'm like, that's cool. This could be fixed. This isn't quite right. Here's that, and I grade that. Then I take the code you gave me and I run in my database and my MySQL to create your database. And because you guys are awesome, there are no errors. And I now have your database on my MySQL. And then I grab your code to insert data and I run that. And because you guys are awesome, it works without a problem. And then I run your test queries, your test cases. And when I run the test queries that you wrote me, send me, they have to return results. If they don't return results, I don't know if they actually worked or not. They can return without an error, but there might be a logic problem where it's not quite getting the information that you wanted to give me. So the queries you send me must return results. The best way for you to do this is to write the test cases first. And then when you insert data, make sure the data matches what's supposed to come out from the test queries. Does that make sense to everybody? Nathan's speaking for everyone because I see him nod.
Yeah, it makes
Nathan B.
sense.
Okay, say cool. I don't require cameras be on. I just need to make sure like everyone's like thumbs up, just make sure I'm not, make sure I'm making sense. Because sometimes if you ask my wife, sometimes I don't make sense. Okay. So ERD, code to create the database, code to input data, and code for test cases. There's two more things you need. The fifth thing you need to give me is a PowerPoint presentation or a short video explaining your database, explaining your theory, and explaining how it works. 2 to 5 minutes, nothing great, nothing huge. It can be a PowerPoint, like a handful of slides I can just bum through myself, or like you can make a quick 2 to 5 minute video and explain everything to me. The last thing I need is I need a mock-up of a front end that will work with your database. Because databases on their own aren't useful to anybody because the average person can't use a database. They need a front end to imagine going to Amazon and just having to get into the database and order what you want without a front end, right? You haven't write a query, select from items where item equals shirt, color equals blue, size blah blah, right? That right. So we want to do a front end. So I don't care how you do this. You could do it in some super cool app and design it perfectly. You can do it with your kids' Crayola crayons on construction paper and scan it in and send it to me. And what it needs to be is I need to see what the front end would look like, right? And then how it connects back to the database. So for example, like I might do something like, I provide no, I sent it. I would say I would do like I just gotta like I bring MS Paint. Like let me just do this. Let's see, MS Paint, because that is my all-purpose app. All right, so here, bring up my MS Paint, and I have here's my screen that I'm going to do this on, and I'm going to put a box here, and I'm going to put a box here, and I'm going to put a big box here, and this box is going to be called astronaut. I'm gonna spell it right, astronaut. And this box is going to be called mission launch site. I'll even spell that right too. And these are going to be drop downs. I don't have the ability to do tools here, so I do so this. So here I'll say, okay, so this this box attaches to this this table, this box attaches to this table, and there'll be drop downs. And then when I click the two of these together, I have a little enter button over here. In this box here will show me the astronaut and what launch sites they went from. Okay, does that make sense? It's like super simple. This is like the least, like if you don't turn this in, you lose like 6 points, right? Because honestly, this is just to make sure you understand how mappings work, how you map the front end to the back end, how those connections work, right? And that's that, and that's the final project. You zip all that up, you send it to me, and it's good. I prefer that you send the code in different files. So I have the so I have a file for the creation of the database, I have a file for the inserts, and a file for the test cases. That's how I prefer it. You zip it up, you upload it to the site, and it's done. Okay, so now about the papers. So if you choose to do the final project, starting this week if you want, you no longer do the papers. This is not what you write about. Okay? If you do the final project, the papers become essentially a journal entry to me on the status of your project. So this week might be, I was on the Tuesday night call, I heard about the final project, been kind of noodling over this, and I think I might do a final project. It might either be, I like the idea about the food storage thing, but also I've got a really huge butterfly collection that I might want to write a database for. So I'm between those two, right? So this week and next week, you should be like figuring out what database you want to be. The next 3 weeks of that, building the database, so on and so forth. But the point is, your papers become a journal entry to tell me where you are in your project. Okay. Now all cards on the table. If you decide this week that you're going to do the final project, and you get to week 12 and like, finals are happening and you're super busy and you just didn't get to finish it, and on week 12 you say, hey, brother Stevic, I'm just going to do the final exam, that's totally cool. That's fine. I'm not gonna be mad at you if life gets in the way all the time. So that's that. As long as you do one of the two of them, you don't want to do neither. Just do one of the two of them. I don't suggest on week 11 deciding to do the final project. This is a bad idea unless you get a lot of free time and not a lot of friends. Because you're gonna be nose to the grindstone for 2 weeks trying to figure this thing out. But yeah, so if you choose the final project starting this week, your papers will be focused on that. How did the project, what am I gonna do, how am I doing it, where I'm at, stuff like that. So that's the lowdown on the final project. Any questions on that? All right, cool. I think it's a great thing to do. It's a lot of fun. I have not had anyone who's hated life because of doing it. I've encouraged several former students to turn their databases into front-end apps because I think they would really work. But you have to be a good front-end guy and a back-end guy. I am 100% database side. I don't do pretty. I do functional, and so no one ever likes. When I coded and I did front-end coding, no one liked my stuff because it was functional and not pretty, and people like pretty. I'm one of those guys that when you're doing PowerPoint presentations, I use like 17 different transitions in the same slide just because I can. So you'll never see me make a PowerPoint presentation because I get carried away far too much. All right, so I've thrown a lot of information at you today. The where clauses, the final project. So we're just about at time. So normally we're going to end right on time, maybe a little bit before 10:25, 10:30. When we start designing databases next week and week after, we might run a little later because I get really involved in it and I enjoy creating the databases. And these calls will also be for you guys to show off your ERDs, ask any questions, go over the stuff. I like to make this a real community project. So we can all learn from each other. And so if you're comfortable with it, you can show your ERD on the night and say you're stuck here, and we can talk about it as a class as to how to work through the problems or discuss it and have that. So that's a lot of fun too. So, all right. Are there any questions on anything from this week, anything from last week, or anything in general?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that maybe for the database files, could we like upload them to GitHub and link there or something like that?
What do you mean?
Like for submitting them, because sometimes instead you can sync them with GitHub and then you could just go download them from there. I don't know if it's like any better at all, but
I haven't had anyone do that. As long as I have access to it, I don't care. That's fine. Whatever you want to do. People have only ever last semester was the big one where people made the change where they figured out that you can import data from a spreadsheet. It's not something that I teach in class. It's not something that's really easy to do in MySQL, but they did it, so they figured it out. But if you want to upload yourself to GitHub and give me access to it, that works for me too.
okay.
Any other questions?
Just what the word for next week's quiz is.
Oh, that's a good point. Let's see, what should it be? Let's make it I'm gonna go Brandon Sanderson. We're gonna say it's Mistborn. I just got into reading his stuff and it's really quite good. I just found he's
I've only ever read the Stormlight Archive of his, but I love them. I think they're great.
yeah. I tried reading Stormlight first, but it was just way too wordy for me. So
You have to stick with it for the first couple chapters. After that, it'll hook you and you'll stay
Yeah.
with it. But
Yeah.
the first couple chapters are rough to get through.
oh, I know I got through like chapter 2, but for me, because I got through Mistborn and now I understand his writing style and understand his world building is insane.
Yeah.
The dude, so yeah.
There's
Hey.
your database. Which
How do you
characters
spell that?
part of which books?
Mistborn,
Yeah.
Mistborn.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
fine.
you.
I'm actually in the middle of Mistborn right now. I
Are ya?
haven't. Yeah,
Which
pretty
one?
good so far. Just the first one. I
yeah.
haven't had that long.
Oh, with Vin and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
with that was the first one I read from him was Elantris, which was his first book, which was really good. I just finished I finished his first trilogy for Mistborn about 6 months ago, and I'm in the middle of the second trilogy, but I'm also reading his secret project books. I mean, the dude wrote 4 books during COVID.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna write 4 books. He just wrote 4 books.
He's the author version of Marvel.
Yeah,
is what
that
it is.
I would not disagree with that at all. That is very, very true. But so yeah, I've gotten to and read about 2 of the existing secret projects that have been released. But I'm about to start the 3rd book in the second Mistborn storyline for the year 2. But yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, so
Yeah,
that'll be this week's word, Mistborn.
Yeah, I think Brandon Sanderson writes like over 2,000 words a day or something like that.
Yeah, he does. He writes quite prolific. From what I understand, he's very, very regimented in how he does things. I've been watching his BYU lectures on writing, and he's giving the commencement address at UVU this year. So
Oh, that's cool.
he's a good guy. He's a good guy, and it's interesting when you see with our church and how our theology is, how he translates that. And when I read his stuff, I see like if there's any like hints of our theology in the religions of his books, which is always an interesting. There was a comic book author, his name is Mike Allred, and he did a comic called Madman, and Madman had 3 friends called the 3 Nephites. So he absolutely had aspects of our church structure in his comics, which was interesting. But yeah, so, and those who have read Brandon Sanderson, I do recommend. He's very good. I don't read books, I just listen to them. I can't read books anymore. not because I have bad eyesight, just because there's something about sitting and having a book in my hands. And plus, I find that when I was a kid in elementary school back millions of years ago, when I was taught how to read, I was taught how to read every third sentence, every other word. So for me, it was just getting the idea of what was being written, not the actual comprehension, right? So needless to say, I'm a great test taker when it comes to SATs and GREs, because I don't read the entire paragraph, I just find the answers, right? So when I realized that this was a problem, and it's going to sound very bizarre when I say this out loud, it always does. I had read the Harry Potter books probably 5 or 6 times before I listened to it on audiobook the first time. And the first time I listened to an audiobook is when I realized, when they talk about the mirror of Ursed, that Ursed is desire spelled backwards. And I never got that once during the reading. I got it in the audiobook. So at that point in time, I'm like, I'm just doing audiobooks, because then I'm being forced to listen to every word that the author had, as opposed to reading like every 6th. So anyway, all right, guys, have a great week. If you're going to go see Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, enjoy it. I probably will see it myself. And I will see y'all next week.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
see ya.
Bye.
Night.